Welcome to Harimau Mining. Today we want to talk about what to consider before purchase first GPU mining rig. First, we need to consider about money. For first mining GPU purchase, do you have a desktop PC with empty PCIe slot? If yes, you save a mining rig cost. If no, budget yourself with $380 to $600 US. Cost of both is only applicable in Malaysia. As you see, this is the picture for a empty mining rig without GPU. If you want to purchase multiple GPU and the GPU quantity is over the desktop PC capacity, means over the PCIe slot, then the cost of $380 to $600 US cannot be avoided. Alright, this means that if you have a desktop PC with one empty PCIe slot, means that you only can add one GPU. If you want to add more than that, then you need another rig, or maybe a PCIe to 4 USB adapter. But that adapter only applicable for some of the motherboard and it is limited by the CPU's PCIe LAN. Okay? Then you need to decide your GPU purchase budget. Because you know your rig budget already, then the rest will be your GPU budget. Okay, let's talk about GPU budget. When you want to buy the GPU, always go for efficient and value GPU, then high-end or high hash rate GPU, as it helps for long run unless you got space issue. Okay, later I will explain why you need efficient and value GPU. Efficient GPU means that it provides more hash rate per power. Value GPU means it provides more hash rate per dollar. Okay, let's go deeper by referring to www.hashrate.no. This is the website for you to check what is the overclock setting for particular GPU and what is the power usage. And you can calculate the return rate, the ROI, duration in their website as well. Okay, so by referring to that, you can check the GPU mining hash rate and power as I mentioned just now. Okay, this is the table that I do it myself when I want to purchase a GPU every time. Okay, so as you can see on the table, I highlight some of the number with green color. Okay, you can pause the screen and then take a look on the figures. Okay, the summary of the table is what per fan should be controlled below 50 watts, else you have to deal with the heat control of the GPU. This means that when your GPU need to consume high power, but the fan number for the GPU is less, means that you might need to dealing with the heat control. Okay, so when you want to purchase the GPU, the fan quantity of the GPU is very important, especially for mid or high-end GPU. Okay, pick most efficient and value GPU as it has shortest ROI period. Okay, as you can see, the ROI period from 2,800 US dollar to 6,500 US dollar target price of ETH. The combination of A times B GPU is always the shortest or the second shortest. Okay, this is the reason why if you want to have a shortest ROI period, always go for most efficient and value GPU. Okay, pick most efficient GPU will give you best profit for long run. As you can read from the table, the AMD 6600XT GPU can provide the best profit no matter what, because the monthly electricity cost is the lowest. Okay, this is related to the power consumption of the GPU during the mining. Okay, the IO period is relied on when you sell your coin. So when you keep the coin with you and then you set a plan to sell it, then only you can you can shorter your ROI period. If you often doing the cash out or sell the coin, means that your ROI period is not planned. Okay, but I understand some of the audience, they need to sell the coin very often to pay out their electricity. But as you can see from the table, right, as long as you plan your selling target price, then you can roughly know what is the ROI period of your GPU. Okay, above USD to MYR ringgit conversion rate is taken at 4.2, $1 to 4.2 ringgit Malaysia. Okay, the next one you need to consider about PSU power. So here we need to calculate the PSU power. Example, 3070 Ti on ETH takes about 186 watt each, and you need to plan to get 8 GPU rig, for example. Okay, this wattage is taken from the hash rate.no. Okay, from here the total power will be 8 times 186 divided by 0.8. Then it is equal to 1860 watts, 1860 watts. This is already considered 80% load, 20% safety buffer. Okay, then it means that 1800 watt PSU is already enough, or 2 pieces of 1000 PSU is good to go. Okay, from here you need to consider, is it the PSU got enough 8 pin or what we call 6 plus 2 pin connector. Okay, what is 8 pin or 6 plus 2 pin BGA or PCIe connector? Okay, this is a chart that can clearly tell you what is the power rating, safety power rating for the PCIe cables. Okay, normally we call 8 pin PCIe cable, but it's actually 6 plus 2 pin cables. When you purchase a PSU, this cable is an accessory inside the package. Okay, so as you can see from here, there is some combination of the cables lah. Okay, some cable is come with one VGA port, one 8 pin to one 8 pin, and then the other cables, example, is one 8 pin to two 8 pin. Also, some of the cable provide one 8 pin to one 8 pin plus one 6 pin. Okay, when you see the picture on the right, this is to show you what is the advanced safety power rating for the PCIe splitter. Okay, the picture on the top is 8 pin PCIe splitter, means that it's one 8 pin to two 8 pin splitter. Okay, even though one 8 pin the maximum power is 288 watt, you having two 8 pin doesn't mean that you have more than 500 watts. It still combine the power, because the limit of the rating is on the input, it's not the output. Right, same goes to 6 pin. The maximum power rating is 216 watts. Okay, so as we know, 3070 Ti takes about 186 watt, which is consists 2x 8 pin connector. Okay, most of the 3070 consists 2 8 pin connector. Okay, so one 8 pin is equal to 2 6 pin or 2 PCIe slot. Okay, so why I mean is that, because when we talk about one 8 pin, the rated power is 150 watts, and 6 pin the rated power is 75 watts. PCIe slot also 75 watts. So one 8 pin is also equal to 2 6 pin or 2 PCIe slot. Okay, later I will have the table to explain this. Then the calculation will be 186 divided by 5, because as you can see, we have 2 8 pin connector on 3070. So it means that also equal to 4 PCIe slot. Okay, then plus the PCIe slot on the GPU, then is equal to 5 PCIe slot. So this is the reason why I divide 5 here. So each of the PCIe slot takes 37.2 watts. Okay, alright, so PCIe slot takes 37.2 watts. The 8-pin connector each will take 37.2 times 2, 74.4 watts. Okay, so 2 8-pin on 3070 Ti can use one piece of 8-pin splitter cable. The maximum load of the cable will be 148.8 watts. So it's far below the maximum power 288 and the rated power 150. Okay, so the table here is to show you that what is the maximum power consumption in watts, okay, for the particular connectors on the GPU lah. Okay, for PCIe slot 75 watts as I mentioned just now, for 6-pin 75 watts, and 8-pin is 150 watts. Okay, the PCIe Express is the PCIe slot that I mentioned just now. Okay, so you remember the figure I mentioned here, and then we can check it out in the next slide. Okay, each VGA port on the PSU takes maximum 288 watts. This is taken from the picture in previous slides. And then 8-pin connector rated 150 watts. Okay, this is what I mentioned just now. Mean you need 2 8-pin connector for 3070 Ti because it will take 186 watt. Okay, so basically you need this cable lah, because if you have this cable, means that the cable consists 2 8-pin. Okay, this cable will be perfect if you have this cable from your PSU package. Okay, otherwise you need 2 VGA port on your PSU. Okay, below are the simple diagram that I provide to you, then let you easily understand what I mentioned just now. Okay, this is the GPU that consists 2 8-pin and then connect to a riser, okay, or connect to the PCIe slot. Okay, whenever you are using riser or you are using riserless motherboard, okay, using risers, then you need to power up the risers. When you're using the motherboard, the riserless motherboard PCIe slot also power up by one 6-pin. So for me, it is same. Okay, then from here you need a 8-pin splitter cable. Okay, this 8-pin splitter cable will connect to one of the 8-pin from this PCIe cable from PSU. Okay, and then this splitter cable connect to the 2 8-pin connector on the GPU, and then another 8-pin connector will connect to the risers using the 6-pin only because the cable is 6 plus 2 pin. Okay, always remember when you have 2 GPU taking power from one power line, whenever you want to adjust the overclock of one of the GPU, right, another GPU can be affected due to the power drawn height. Okay, this is the reason why that I always advise that the most you can share is the riser power. Do not share the 8-pin power. Do not share the 8-pin power from 2 different power lines. Okay, what I'm talking the power lines is the VGA port. Okay, so from here, this is the simple diagram that I show 3070 Ti taking from one power line. Okay, so you need 3 8-pin to connect to 3 pieces of 8-pin splitter cable. Okay, so this is the cables you need lah. Either you have these 2 cable, then it's very perfect. Okay, so you are only using 2 VGA port. Okay, it means that 2 3070 Ti will occupy above cables lah. Okay, so when you check what the PSU spec from the website, whenever you want to check whether the cable consists 2 8-pin or 1 8-pin only, then you can see from here lah. Here mentioned 2x700mm means that this is single 8-pin cable. Whenever mention 2x700 and 850 means that this is 2 8-pin on one cable. Okay, so this is the example that I taken from EVGA 850GA. Provide above standard cables in their package. Okay, so means that provide 4 cables. 2 is single 8-pin, 2 is double 8-pins. And this PSU consists 4 VGA port. So means that this VGA And these two 3070 Ti combination will take two VGA port lah. So doesn't mean that the EVGA 850GA support 4 3070 Ti. Let us calculate. 186 times 4, 744 watts. So you take 744 divided by 850, because this EVGA 850GA is 850 watts. So the load here is more than 80% already, so it's not acceptable. So you need EVGA Supernova 1000G plus, 2 pieces of this PSU to support 8 GPU rig with 3070 Ti. Okay. So the rule of thumb for 8-pin to 2x6 plus 2-pin splitter cable, this is what we call 8-pin splitter cable lah. It's like this. Each 8-pin or 6-pin on your GPU, you need one piece of this splitter cable. Always remember that. If you are using normal ATS power supply, it's not means that normal ATS power supply is what I show here lah, the EVGA 850 Supernova. This is ATS PSU. Is not consider those special purpose mining PSU. Okay. Next, you need to choose the frame or casing. Okay, basically we have two casing in the market. The first one will be the open style. Okay, this casing or this frame is generally low noise lah, because the heat can dissipating to the ambient. So normally when we using this frame, we can use lower speed fan, cooling fan, and then support almost all standard motherboard. Some even support riserless motherboard. Okay, our Shopee shop have the open style frame that support riserless motherboard. Okay, in this case, and this frame normally is more lower cost compared to casing. Okay, of course, because this is not a casing lah, so the weight is much more lower. And then because this frame is open style, it is more easy for us to do the troubleshooting by eye or by your hand lah. Okay, and then it's much more easier to do the maintenance, because you can see the things already dusty, then you can clean it more often. Then here is come the casing type, or what we call closed type lah. Okay, this closed type casing, normally it will create medium to high noise, because it needs to creating the negative pressure inside the casing to bring out the heat. Okay, means that normally they will have two pairs or one pair of fans or two pair of the cooling fans, but the extraction fan definitely will be stronger than the pushing fan, because they need to creating the negative pressure inside the casing, then the heat will come out. Okay, most of the casing only support riserless motherboard, and the casing most of the time is dedicated for the motherboard itself only. Whenever the motherboard is obsolete, then the casing basically is a scrap. Then this is why I mentioned here the cost is higher. Okay, because you cannot reuse it. Okay, because of this is closed casing, the weight also higher compared to frame, but by using this casing, it will look more neat and tidy, because all wire already hiding inside. Okay, in short, when you want to use the open style frame or casing frame, you need to basically follow this rule lah. Okay, frame basically suitable for all range of GPU. Okay, if you are using high-end GPU, for example above 3070 Ti, avoid using riserless motherboard. Using riser that can adjust the GPU gate to create the cool air path. Okay, because the high-end GPU mostly they need more fresh air, or maybe they need to do some DIY modify at the backplate, or you want to modify the fan cooling to become water block cooling, then you need bigger space. For in this case, normally they were using frame or open style frame. Okay, for the casing type is suitable for low or mid-range GPU only, because most of the GPU is riserless, so you can refer for the below different gap, and then you can decide what is the GPU that you want to put inside. For 55mm gap, then 90 watts, 65mm, then below 140, 70mm, then below 175 watts. Okay, in our shop we did have 70mm gap. Okay, this is the picture for the riserless board lah, in case you never see it before. Okay, for motherboard, if you are buying high-end GPU, example higher than 3070 Ti, as I mentioned in previous example, avoid riserless motherboard. Okay, because their gap will never have sufficient cooling air path for 3070 Ti. Else you need to use a very high RPM fan. As I mentioned here, at least 3200 RPM fan at the front and 3200 RPM fan at the back. Okay, and then if you have thick GPU, example more than 45mm, you also need to avoid riserless motherboard, because the gap of the riserless board is fixed. Means that you will block the cool air path. Okay, the rest should always go for riserless motherboard, because below are the key benefit of riserless motherboard. First, it will eliminate failure factor created by riser, because whenever you do the mining, you adding a riser in between your GPU to the motherboard. Actually, you are adding a factor of failure, the failure factor. Whenever your riser causing any problem, then your mining process will be a lot of troubles lah. Okay, and then when you using the riser board, you also reduce the power usage by riser. Okay, and then normally the riserless motherboard is much more cheaper. And another key problem is when you want to source for standard motherboard that support 8 GPU, normally only 6 GPU. 8 GPU is not so easy to source. Even though our Shopee shop consists those standard motherboard that support 8 GPU, but it's not much in the market. Okay, so what's the rest of the component that we need to consider? Okay, the first one is CPU or processor. Always go for the low cost, low power option, because there is so many different type of processor according to the motherboard. I think this is not so important, because normally we'll go for the low cost, low power option. Okay, for the RAM, minimum 4 GB for HiveOS or 8 GB for Windows. Always remember, when you want to mining more than 3 GPU, avoid using Windows, because the driver crash will drive you crazy. Okay, for drive, we suggest using pen drive or SSD for HiveOS or SSD for Windows only. Okay, the reason why I suggest pen drive for HiveOS, because you can always prepare one more pen drive and then stick on the frame or the casing of the rig. Whenever happen an issue of the boot up, you can immediately switching the pen drive. You no need to wait to burn the SSD. Of course, you can stick an SSD on your casing or your frame lah, but definitely the cost is higher. Okay, for riser, always use newer version, but no need latest version as they are expensive. For below 80 watt mining power, 2000 RPM suction at IO plate is already very efficient. Okay, so this is the IO plate lah. Okay, you can see on the picture there. Okay, for 110 watts, 2700 RPM, and then 3200 RPM, and then 4000 RPM. Okay, for cooling fan at the back of GPU is purpose to bring in the fresh air. So whenever your GPU gap is small, choose high RPM fan. Otherwise, 2000 or 2700 RPM is very sufficient already. Alright, this is for today. Thank you. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you don't mind, please click the bell button to set a reminder for you. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.